Introspection and reflection tends to lead a thinker to think. Self-evaluation and societal analysis tend to be related and are often so tightly bonded that you don't even notice that you're simply floating down a river of nonsensical and randomly imposed authority. That's not good. Occasionally, you just need to step back, run away from our everyday world, get a little perspective. I've been doing that lately. A few things have jumped out at me. Questions have been formed. Analyses were made. It seems to me that we've become a society of drones. We simply accept everything we hear from people who've decided that they're the authority figures and arbitrarily appointed themselves as your boss. Answer to them, or else. This is the rise of the Karen. You give Karen a paycheck and now you've formed HR. How do you fix that? I don't know, this is a video from a guy who doesn't know how to fix the world, but at least recognizes that things are being lost for no good reason. We can make things better, and it's easy. We can start by doing instead of expecting to be served. Where'd that go? Whatever happened to making instead of buying? Maybe learning instead of simply accepting what you're told is truth. Last point's been a problem lately. We all know what we've been taught, but for some reason we've decided to dump that and just accept some schmuck on the 6 o'clock news who never passed his 10th grade biology and failed the marshmallow test in 3rd grade. Suddenly he's the voice of all things technical? Maybe that free-thinking fear is just being outside the crowd of the masses. That's a dangerous position to be in for sure. Maybe it's just intellectual laziness mixed with a heavy dose of self-doubt. The media's been doing a hell of a job lately teaching us that double-speak is the way to go. I'm off track. This is about camping gear, mostly. Take whatever fluff you get that comes along with it, and do with it what you will. There are a couple things that have been bugging me of late, and they're related to consumerism. Yeah, I'll get to the camping stuff. Just relax. I don't care that people want to buy things that are already made, but it's gotten to the point that people don't understand they can make things for themselves, and that they can learn things so that they can alter things. Not only that, it seems like folks get stuck on whatever the current thing is. It's just stupid. And it makes people look like pansies. Weirdly, the acceptance of poor quality is just accepted. But God forbid you get poor service that feeds your ego or doesn't make your experience insta-worthy. For the love of all that's good, stop being pansies. Roll up your sleeves and do something, and do it on your own. Here's a good example. You see this? I bought this cleaver back in 1999 from a clearance rack at the BX when I was stationed in Japan. It says it's stainless steel, but that's about the only bragging rights it has. It was crazy sharp for a while, and then it wasn't. It isn't fancy. It doesn't have a multi-folded Damascus construction or super rare techie handle. It's a hunk of metal with a sharp edge and a wood handle. I admit, I've looked at replacements over the years for two very stupid reasons. One, it wasn't very sharp anymore and I didn't want to buy sharpening stones or learn more than my Boy Scout methods of sharpening, which were rudimentary at best. Two, it didn't look like a bunch of nifty ones I'd seen online, thus was not the current thing. Yeah, I'm a hypocrite and I'm guilty too, but I'm doing something about it. Anyway, I went to cut something with it one day and I was annoyed. It was dull. Of course it was dull. I thought that I really should have replaced that, and then I thought about how absurd that thought was. I put something of an edge on it with the stupid sharpening rod that I had at the time. Those things never do much to sharpen anything, but it does open you up for some good stitches if you're into that sort of thing. I think the local Dock-in-a-Box union probably mandates these, comes with every cheap knife set that you get at every cheap wedding. Throw those damn things in the trash before you hurt yourself, or worse, ruin your knife. Anyway, this moment, my dull cleaver moment, this is when the light really came on. Dimmed and dusty from the decades of shut up and follow, finally started to glow again. Why the hell didn't I sharpen this thing myself? This is not rocket science. The mental generator kicked in. That bulb finally started going. Lots of things started to become way more obvious, but the cleaver, that was the immediate focus. What to do? Well, get a sharpening tool, that's the first step. I figured I could even keep it in the truck when I wasn't camping, and that's when I realized how dull the rest of my knives were. I sharpened them with my newly acquired sharpening tool. I bought a tool because who has time to devote to the art of sharpening a knife? Turns out everyone does. You do. I do. The tool designed to remove thought and skill turned out to work, but at the expense of blade edge, and it actually damaged my knives in the long run. That tends to be the nature of a quick fix. Stones would be better, so I finally got some and I learned to use them. Sharpening knives, ironically, sharpened my mind. Interesting mental leaps were happening. The big revelations. They were still far off, but the impact was huge. It was then that I realized I'd let media and society at large talk the creativeness and self-sufficiency out of me. In coarse terms, and to use what will probably be an offensive statement to some, get bent if that's you. This is a respectful thing at the end of the day. It isn't the arrow, it's the Indian. Alright, on the Indian thing, do you remember? Maybe you're not old enough, but when I was a kid, we used to revere the American Indian, who we call now the Native American. Whatever you want to call them these days is fine. That's up to them and you, and between you and your God, I don't care. Yeah, I get that bad stuff happened to them because of real pricks, and that racism was a thing. Cool, we've got that settled. It sucked for them, and I wish we could have done better. I wasn't part of that, and neither were you. Moving on. A big chief tablet was always present on my desk in grade school. Just the namesake conjured up images of these powerful warriors who were clever and resourceful. They could do stuff. And that gets me right back to the point that I've been meandering around. This is a society that thinks if they can't order something, it can't exist. It also became a society where if it isn't immediately right here in the public focus, in this moment as the thing, the current thing, it's worthless. Back to my cleaver. It's razor sharp. Doesn't hold an edge as well as some of my blades, but it's easy to sharpen. That's an advantage of softer steel. That means it's razor sharp almost all the time. That's not a function of the blade. It's a function of me. I didn't need a super mega 300 times folded Japanese steel cleaver. I need a $10 sharpening stone, a little bit of patience, a willingness to learn, and a desire to create what I want. That addresses one of my points. Let's get to another. The best thing is the latest, greatest version, and that brings me to tents. So yes, I've finally gotten to the camping part of this. Cool. I've been recapturing some of my youth, the good parts, when I was an explorer pushing into the wild with nothing but dangerous enthusiasm. Some guys get sports cars to run through hookers and blow. I decided hiking and camping was more my thing, so I'm doing that. To camp, you need a shelter, and because I'm a typical human, I bought a tent. One was a cheapie from Amazon. It was light years ahead of what I used as a kid. It worked. I like it a lot. As you learn, you learn. I learned more about tents, modern tents. Double wall, single wall, freestanding, trekking pole. Different tents for different needs. There are various attributes that make each better suited for specific situations over others, and that's cool. The first one was a double wall tent, which means it's a mesh thing with a non-mesh thing over the top. So the wet stuff doesn't soak you in bad weather, or you don't get drenched from internal condensation. It pretty much works, but it comes at the expense of weight, right? More stuff means more mass. More mass usually means it takes up more space. And I'm an old guy, I don't like to carry any more than I have to. So smaller and lighter appeal to my current station in life. There's a single wall tent. And this is where gnashing of teeth and much millennial mental anguish rears its ugly head on the YouTubes. Go look for yourself if you doubt me. Seriously, you'd think the use of a single-walled tent was the most difficult thing to endure in the history of the world. You'd think Schindler's List was about having to deal with a single-walled tent. Global warming, world strife, oil spills, they all pale in comparison to using a single-wall tent. Are you kidding me? Until I bought my other tent, I'd never even heard of a double-wall tent. Yeah, they collect condensation, you wipe it up, who cares? It's like the millennials think they're saving the universe by screeching in the most intense histrionics that single-wall tents will have wet walls inside after a cool night down by the lake. May God Almighty soothe the anguished souls of the modern camper. My advice for both of these situations? Start looking back over your shoulder. See how our parents, grandparents, and their grandparents did things. They had it a lot harder, but they seemed to whine a lot less somehow. And they thought they had it a lot better. There's reasons for that, and I think the biggest one is that they knew they could rely on themselves to fix things that they felt needed fixing. As it turns out, self-reliance and creative problem solving are pretty damn rewarding, and that brings me to one final thought. Few things in this world are perfect. You might catch what seems like a perfect moment, but as far as material things go, I've never seen perfection. You don't need it, and you probably shouldn't go looking for it. It doesn't exist. The reason it doesn't exist is that perfection lies with the individual, and since we're all individuals, perfection is impossible to mass produce. As a man of a few years, I can also tell you this. Imperfection is the closest you'll get to perfection. I know this sounds stupid, but it's true. You're not perfect and could get better. You can be a better version of you. Your possessions aren't perfect, but you can make them better, and in that pursuit, you can make yourself better. See how that works? You shouldn't ever want anything to be perfect. The contrived, artificial society and expectations therein are killing us as humans and wrecking our society. Stop it. Realize that the whole experience of life is a human one. And humans aren't perfect. Perfect experiences are lousy stories. And that's a topic for another video. So for now, go do some imperfect stuff with your imperfect stuff and learn some imperfect things and be happy. Or don't. I don't care. I'm not the boss of you. Take care.